Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Old Hunt, where we are still celebrating Bloodborne's 10-year anniversary. And also, I forgot something that I meant to mention in the last episode. So, we're going to fix it in post, okay? We're going to fix it with some editing. If you look at the top right-hand corner of the screen, you'll notice that I am up to 9 insight, and I still have only used the one Madman's Knowledge. You're sort of going to have to take my word for that, I suppose. I guess I can show you in my items that I still have the only other one that I could have picked up. But I know I had that bit where I did some grinding off camera. But I've really only used the one Madman's Knowledge. Why am I up to 9 insight right now? And the answer is, it's the bosses we've been fighting. So I'm going to edit in, you can see, before I went into the Father Gascoigne boss fight, I had 1 level of insight. As the fight started, I gained 1. Maybe more than 1. I think it's 1 at the start of the fight. And then I gained more at the end of the fight, right? So after proving victorious. So boss fights in this game are another way that you can gain insight. And that, I think, is important to note, right? It's not just Madman's Knowledge that gives us insight. We can also gain insight by interacting with the world itself. And this is another reason why I like the translation of insight, because it's as if you're uncovering the mysteries of the world and gaining more knowledge about it, and in the process, that's what's giving you that insight. It doesn't all have to come from someone who was touched by arcane knowledge before you, and you scrape it out of their skull, and that, like, you can gain insight that way, but you can also gain it by exploring the world, right? Exploring the unknown, like we were saying was a theme of the game, according to one of the developers, or one of the developers, in the interviews that we've seen. But anyway, so that's the insight thing that I meant to mention last time. And this guy here is reminding me that we also have a little bit of a set of side quests to go on. So anyone who's expecting a lot of game progress in this episode, we're still going to have to wait a little bit on that. And we're going to head back. I'm going to warp around. I'll cut to when I am next in the world of Yharnam, if indeed it is its own world. All right, and here we are back in Yosefka's clinic. We have our good friend, the doctor, behind this door up here. So let's check in with her.
Oh, well, hello. Splendid. Let me ask you a small kindness. You're soon off to hunt, I presume? Then, if you find any survivors, tell them to seek Yosefka's clinic. Upon my Hippocratic oath, if they are yet human, I will look after them. Perhaps even cure them. This sickness, these beasts, they are not to be feared. This time the night is long. I may be trapped here, but I should do something to help. I'll even offer a reward for your cooperation. Tempted? Well, off you go then.
So this person sounds different. And I don't just mean it sounds as if Yosefka has started saying different things to us. It also sounds like a different person. I'm going to go ahead and edit in a couple of sound clips so that you can judge that for yourself.
This night is long, but morning always comes.
You're soon off to hunt, I presume?
And as you could probably hear, we've actually switched from one voice actor to another. So we have a new NPC behind this door. We don't know her name. We call her the imposter Yosefka, faux Sefka, as some people say. And this is someone who has their own opinions about what's going on here. And important to note, I think I forgot to mention this in the last episode, although I'll probably have edited it back in by now. But this is the second NPC we've gotten confirmation from so far. This night of the hunt is unusual, right? It's going to be a long one, they're saying. We had the note saying, okay, this is bad enough that we're afraid it's going to be old Yharnam's burning all over again. And then we have a couple NPCs now, the Chapel Dweller and this imposter, who are offering safe places. they're both saying that this night is especially bad. We have people who are turning even inside the houses with the incense. You can tell by the screams. Kind of a horrific detail, but, that's, I guess, how you would know in the chapel dweller's position. So let's hear a little bit more. I'm tempted by this reward.
If you find anyone who's still human, send them straight to Yosefka's clinic. You can assure them there's no place safer. Please, do me this service.
Okay, I think that's the line that just repeats.
If you find anyone, you can please.
Okay. So, we're not quite sure. It's a little early. We've just discovered that this imposter here is looking for people from around Yharnam. So, not quite sure what's going on, why there's an imposter, and why she wants us to send her people who are still people. But it's worth noting that this is something that it's a quest line that I don't do in Translationborn, and so one of the reasons I'm making this series is to get some different routes through the game and let people see what they're like and also experience them for myself. I've done this storyline once in all of my playthroughs of Bloodborne, just because I prefer sending people to Oedon Chapel just in general. If you do send them to Oedon Chapel, you can interact with them, and as a result, you sort of wind up with just a lot more content. You wind up with a lot more information, you wind up with a lot more items, you wind up with a lot more things to engage with. And so there's a tendency to go and just pushes people who are putting their games on the internet towards the option of, okay, I'm going to explore the option that has all those other things built off of it. And this one sort of shuts that down. It's a little bit of a price you pay, and so I feel like it doesn't get featured as much on the internet. So I want to show this one off, and also just want to experience it for myself. Like I said, it's been a long time since I've seen this storyline play out. So we're going to be sending people to Yosefka's clinic. We're going to be grabbing those rewards. Should be an interesting sort of twist on the game. But we are not quite done making our rounds. Oh, and this is something that is worth noting. If you look in the distance, the sky is different. So the night is progressing, right? It's still sunset, but we're further into the sunset. We're noticeably seeing a lot more reds and oranges and things in the sky. So, and the lighting around the ground here, I believe, has also changed. So the whole look of Central Yharnam is starting to be different. And the night is progressing. And I think there are some moments in other previous Souls games where you have like moments where time progresses, but this is the game where I think you can see its influence the most. And it's sort of fitting, right? Like the game transforms as you play it, right? There's a lot of things in Bloodborne that aren't what they seem in a lot of different ways, including, in fact, some of these weapons, right? They're trick weapons. They aren't what they seem. This looks like a cane. Haha, it's a whip, and it's back to a cane again, right? It's things are in a fluid state. They're changing. They're changeable, and as things are going on in the game, the night is proceeding as well, right? So we have all these ways in which things in Bloodborne, as you play the game, are in a state of flux, and I think that's pretty cool. But I think at this point, I want to go and talk to Gilbert. After all, we followed his advice and successfully made it into the Cathedral Ward. And now, eventually, we have the ability to find the Grand Cathedral and potentially learn something about Pale Blood. So, thanks, Gilbert. Anything else to tell us?
You needn't concern yourself with me. I'm afraid I'm of little help now. But before I take this...
Oh, thanks.
I make no use of it, but perhaps you... What afflicted me was incurable, but this time gave me hope. Their strange blood bought me time. I was most fortunate, unharmed by the plague of beasts. I can even die human. Don't you worry about me.
I do worry about you, Gilbert. A couple important things to note about this dialogue, though. He says, "What afflicted me was incurable." And then he came to this town with their strange blood, gave him hope, and he seems to be remembering things just fine, right? So this is sort of reinforcing to me that that blood transfusion that we get at the start of the game that gives us amnesia, not necessarily an effect of the blood transfusion, right? Maybe it's an effect of something else. Maybe it's the tie with the dream, in an abstract sense, or maybe, we're back to my crazy lore theory. Maybe it's a result of us either dying or being in a coma and being in this sort of spirit form. And I think you can look back at that a couple moments in the intro cutscene, and you can start to put some things together, right? You can hear the doll's voice. Oh, and I was editing in before a vocal comparison. I'm going to edit in another vocal comparison now. That voice we heard at the end of the dream, I sort of already gave it away, but still, the voice we heard at the end of the dream at the very start of the game, and the doll's voice when we were leveling up and talking to her that way.
Ah, you found yourself a hunter.
Hello, good hunter. I am a doll, here in this dream to look after you.
So there you have it. It's one and the same, right? So we're somehow, as we're awakening from that dream of the blood transfusion with the blood and the beast and the messengers and all that, we're hearing the doll's voice. And not entirely sure what that means, but I do think it's interesting that you can sort of pinpoint this moment, right? The moment the flames come up seem to be tied to the messengers crawling all over us. We know that the messengers are inhabitants of the dream. We seem to be tied to the dream. There's a little bit more evidence for that than I've shown off just yet. Maybe I'll get to that in this episode, maybe not, because I want to continue running around and talking to a few more NPCs before I go back to the dream. But we seem to be tied to the dream. The messengers live in the dream, and the doll is in the dream, right? Is that why we could hear the doll's voice at the end? Is because of our tie to the dream? What if our being tied to the dream is related to the state of our spirit, right? Maybe we are either go into a coma or we die and we're in a state where the messengers are sort of coming for our soul, but our force of will is such that we're able to hold on, maintain this spirit form. And even though we're tied to the dream, we maintain our form as a hunter. Maybe that's what prompts the hunter's mark to show up, which I sort of brushed past it before because, again, I really don't know what to make of the hunter's mark. Is it a consumable? Yeah, for some reason it's a consumable. You can't consume it. It's a dangling upside-down rune that is carved into the back of one's brain, sign of a hunter. And if you think on it strongly, you will abandon blood echoes, and a hunter will reawaken. So there's something very strange. If we focus on this hunter aspect enough, at the cost of the blood echoes that we've taken on, at the cost of those sort of echoing fragments of those who've come before, we will awaken anew, reawaken, but only hunters, right? Only hunters. So it's the sign of a hunter that we can reawaken as ourselves in that situation. And then, of course, the final line, as if everything that happened had just been a bad dream. So what is going on with that tie to the dream, right? Maybe this is a sign of our sheer force of will on the verge of death. And our tie to the dream is our status in, like, limbo or something? I don't know. I'm going on just pontificating like this. I really don't know any of these answers. If you have thoughts as to all these things that I'm saying, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. And there are some people who sort of, they've played this game before. They've seen where I've been going with this crazy lore theory in advance. And they've been like, you must be thinking of the moment when you hear the doll's voice. And the messengers are crawling all over you. And yeah, that seems to be, like, we're seeing these lampposts that weren't always there. I don't know how much of that is a gameplay concession, how much isn't. It's always difficult to tell. But remember how I was talking about how definitely in the Yosefka's clinic, there's a moment where at first we run down and there's no lamppost, but then we can warp back later, after we've been to the dream. So it's almost as if elements of the dream are seeping into our reality, and you can sort of pinpoint that moment when you can overhear the doll presumably talking to Gehrman, saying, ah, you found yourself a hunter. So maybe the dream and this world are intermingled in a way that I find very interesting. It sort of works out with the ways that a couple different types of horror are intermingled in this game. But anyway, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, and I don't want to just, you know, be constantly putting out a stream of thoughts that may or may not make any sense. I want to be demonstrating our new weaponry. We have a good gift from our friend Gilbert, and as we are playing an arcane build, we should be good with fire. We should be good with, maybe I'll show it off before, did that? Okay, that enemy didn't notice me, good. Let's actually go into the stats to demonstrate this. You can see, where is it? I thought it was the middle column, what happened? Okay, yeah, it is the middle column, it's just further down than I remembered. You can see that we have a D scaling with arcane, which means, and nothing with anything else. So we've got the ability to boost this with our relatively high arcane stat. Now, D scaling obviously isn't great scaling. It's not the same A scaling as we're seeing on the as we saw on those Molotov cocktails. But as we upgrade it, because we have the ability to upgrade both our left hand and our right hand weapons, as we upgrade the flame sprayer, its scaling will change. So we could, and obviously just in and of itself. All right. And so there actually, I think, is a good demonstration of both the strengths and the weaknesses of the flame sprayer. First of all, it's consuming bullets. You can see we've gone from 20 down to 18, which if I'd remembered, I would have made blood bullets ahead of time, because I'd rather not burn my actual bullets if I can avoid it. But we've got the we can't really stop enemies in their tracks the way we could if we swung at them with this cane. Instead, they can still come at us and attack us, right? I got interrupted, I got hit, and not only did I get hit, but I wasn't rallying back any health. So there are a lot of benefits. Remember how the developers were talking about they didn't want the left-hand weapons to overshadow the trick weapons, right? The trick weapons are the real stars of the show of this game. And I think it's probably not a coincidence that they are trick weapons, as I was saying before, and they're the stars of the show. But having the option of being able to use something that's got that arcane scaling going on and deal a continuous stream of damage, it's not bad. Not particularly good for these guys, but it's not bad. Obviously, because these guys, that's the other thing you can't do. Guns, you can get this interrupt and then perform a follow-up visceral. Can't do that with the flame sprayer. So it's another thing you're giving up in using that particular weapon. But, yeah, and in fact, I don't think there's anything super important to the lore about the flame sprayer, but we can check it out. Let's see. What? Did you hear that? What? Okay, it took a little bit for that line to come back, but I know they say these lines. I know that that line is something that these enemies can say, but I did not think they would say it when they're dead. Maybe it's a 1.00 thing. I don't know. I was looking, actually, I can just come up here, and if I do this right, here we go. Bring up the description from here. So this is identified as a special gun. Ooh, I wouldn't have called it interesting. I wouldn't have called it a gun. I don't know what the official translation. I literally don't remember the official translation for this. So maybe they call it a firearm instead of a gun. That would make sense. A little bit of a pun there too, if you think about it. But the Japanese, the final term there, like you could translate that as gun, which is somewhat surprising to me. But anyway, type of, I'm going to say firearm. Type of special firearm used by a portion of the Healing Church. Presumably a portion of the people in the Healing Church, not the actual, like, the side of the building is using this weapon. Let's see. It uses the Quicksilver bullets mixed with blood as a special catalyst to continuously release a stream of high heat flame. it is far from an efficient weapon, but sometimes Sea of Flames is necessary. And let's see. Above all, Yharnam is crawling with impure, unsanitary? I'm not sure the best sense of that word. Beasts, right? Dirty beasts, dirty rotten beasts. We gotta set them on fire. Burn it with fire! So that's what's going on with the flame sprayer. Nothing super important, but I want to get better at doing those in-the-moment translations. So I'm going to practice. I got to build up that muscle. I'm not very good at it right now. Maybe by the time I'm done with this playthrough, I'll be better. And, you know, that way I won't have to edit myself in after the fact quite so much as I've already done in one of these episodes. But anyway, I think that's more than enough on the flame sprayer. We're gonna... Ooh, ah! You know what? I'm gonna fall for the... Look at that. I barely rallied back any health. I was gonna say I was gonna fall for the incentive they've given me to rally back health after taking that damage. But I've clearly made the wrong choice. I've put myself in a situation where I'm just getting more and more hurt and having to fight more and more enemies. Turns out it was a trap. It was all a terrible trap. Oh boy. Alright, well, it happens. Everyone falls for that sort of thing eventually. It's fun to play this game. Alright, we're headed up to talk to the little girl because, as you'll recall from the last episode and our interactions with Father Gascoigne, we have some bad news for her. And along the way, we've sort of already gotten the dialogue, but it was in a little bit of a glitched state. But I want to see if we can get the dialogue from the enemy who is nearby the little girl that we didn't get last time and hear it properly. So this may take a little bit. Sometimes, apparently, you've got to wait in order to get the dialogue to cycle through, but we're going to be very quiet while we wait.
So-called dear sister.
Okay, there it is. Yep, so you can totally get that dialogue from this enemy while they're alive. And I really like sort of the incidental dialogue, which I was mentioning, it's all in English. I really like the incidental dialogue that they've given all these enemies. Gives you a varied picture of the things that are going on in Yharnam and the state that things are in and how different people are reacting. You know, the particular manifestation of beasthood seems to be different depending on from person to person. Also, I'm curious if this door, the dialogue has changed, because sometimes as the day progresses, the dialogues that you get from the people behind doors changes, and I don't remember if this is one or not. Okay. Yeah, apparently this is one of the ones where it hasn't changed. It's just gotten a little bit later, and that dialogue has not progressed. The other doors might be a little different. I remember this door in particular is a little bit glitched, at least in 1.09. I don't think it's this one in particular, but there's one dialogue that's sort of supposed to start that you can see, like, you bring up a dialogue little window, that little black bar I was talking about at the bottom of the screen, and then it instantly goes away. And you don't have really time for the audio to play. And I don't know if that's glitched in this version of the game too. Probably, since it hasn't been fixed in the more recent update, but maybe not. But I do know that that door is a little unreliable, so I might might knock on a few other doors as we go. But one door that I know is not glitched is this one up here. And it's going to bring me back a little bit to the point I was making before.
Hello, Miss Hunter. Still can't find my mum.
So, I really like this choice, and when I say it ties in with the point I was going to make before, it's that the enemies in this world, like, you can tell they're in a bad situation through no fault of their own. They're going about their lives, and it's the night of the hunt, and you can tell there's a sort of regularity to the night of the hunt, right? In order for this to be an unusual night of the hunt, as we've heard from several NPCs, we've seen from that note, this needs to be a relatively frequent occurrence, right? I don't know if it's literally once a month, I don't know if it's once every so many years, but people seem to know in Yharnam what the night of the hunt is as a concept, and they have a certain way of acting, a certain way of treating it. And this particular night of the hunt is unusual, but nights of the hunt in and of themselves appear to be recurring things. And so they've got their regular things that they do on nights of the hunt, but this night of the hunt is irregular. People are transforming even indoors, right? We're hearing people think that the healing church is abandoning them, and it's going to be old Yharnam all over again, and freaking out about that. And you have some people who, when you confront them, they're coming at you with aggression, right? They treat you as a beast. No matter what, you can't convince them otherwise. You can't talk to them. As much as I wish you could, you can't talk to them. They think you're a beast. They're like locked into that mindset, sort of like Father Gascoigne, actually, where they're into this aggressive mode and they're half transformed. They're turning into beasts. But presumably before that happened to them, they were just hunters trying to go about their business. And you have other people who they're just trying desperately to cling on to life, right? We had that one dialogue in the house where the one person was just say, please, I just have to live. I need to make it. I need to hang in there, right? I can't remember the exact words, something like that. And then you have this one, like, right, big, scary, tough enemy. What does that person say? So cold, dear sister, right? It's like this plea for warmth that they're missing. And it ties in with this dialogue because the choice here is hand over the red jewel brooch or don't hand it over, right? And so it's confronting us again with another level to the tragedy of the story of Viola and Gascoigne and this little girl. Because when we first encounter this girl, right, she's like, okay, my mother wears this big, beautiful red jewel brooch. You can't miss it. That's how you'll know it's her. And we go and we find it. The mother's dead. Whatever your story is for how that happened, the mother's unfortunately dead. And so in this choice, we're being asked, okay, are we going to hand over that brooch or are we going to not hand it over? And we could have differing reasons. This is something else, a little bit of a tangent to the point, but I hope you'll indulge me because you've indulged me so far. But it's not a choice of inform the girl or don't inform the girl, right? It's choice of hand over the brooch or don't hand over the brooch. So if you choose to not hand over the brooch, you could just be wanting to hold on to it. You know there's a blood gem in there. It's a rare droplet blood gem. Maybe you just want that, right? Maybe you don't want to give it to the girl because you want to keep the blood gem. Or maybe you realize that handing over the brooch is tantamount to saying, I'm sorry I found your mom and she's no longer with us. So accept this memento of her, right? And you're giving the girl tragic news by handing over the brooch. Or you're going to withhold it because you don't want her to be forced to confront that reality. And I've said before, I'm a fan of tragedies, and so this is the level that speaks to me about this choice in this game, is do we tell this girl, and the twist that it puts on the tragedy, right? So we already have the tragic scenario of Gascoigne was out on the hunt through no fault of his own. He transforms into a beast. He's too far gone. We can't save him with the music box that normally helps him recall himself, even though he's been on the verge of this happening to him before. He's finally slipped too far, and there's a tragedy to that. There's a tragedy to him, at least in my story of this, being responsible for the death of Viola, who the two of them clearly have an affectionate relationship. And you can tell just from the way the girl talks about her interactions with her mother that this is a loving family, and it's just been torn apart by this night of the hunt. And it's not a normal night of the hunt. It's just, and no one had any way of predicting this. It's just turned out this way. And it sort of gets at this thing, the thing that I'm tying it in with the enemies, where you're just confronted with this tragedy, puts this additional little twist on it, and it makes me think of something that comes up a lot in the Soulsborne games, where I'm thinking back to moments in Dark Souls where it's not exactly the same. I think this is a little bit stronger in Dark Souls than it is in this particular scenario, but there's a moment where you can defeat a boss in Dark Souls, Quelaag, and then you have the opportunity, it's sort of a rare, unlikely thing, but you do have the opportunity to talk to her sister after the fight. And it just hits you, where it's just like, okay, I did this thing because I had to complete the game. But was it the right thing to do? Is it a good thing to be doing? You also get this in, like, the Great Wolf Sif, right? You have to get these Lord Souls in order to deal with the crisis that's, like, ruined the world. But if you could leave the Great Wolf Sif alive, I don't know about you, I would leave him alive, or her, I don't actually know. And it just puts you in the situation where the fundamental tragedy is that all you can do is swing your sword. That's the only solution to the problem. You can only go forward and meet these people who were once rational, functional human beings. They're in this state of transformation. They're losing themselves. They're turning into beasts. And all you can do is put them down. And there's an inherent tragedy to that, and an inherent sadness to that. And then you get an additional little flourish in this scenario on that twist by saying, okay, now you know about that. Are you going to communicate that knowledge and make this girl sad? And I already said I'm going to be sending her to the clinic, and I am jealous, right? I'm no longer at the point where this is the first playthrough for me, so I'm motivated by factors besides just the storytelling. I want to keep that blood gem, so I'm not going to hand over the brooch, but we're going to say, you know, we're going to spare this girl's feelings. Let's see what happens.
Oh, okay. I can wait. But isn't there something I can do? Maybe Mum and Dad are stuck out there, waiting for me to come and find them. What do you think, Miss Hunter?
It's not over. It's not over, right? We thought maybe we dodged a difficult choice. It was too hard for us to talk to the girl, and not talk to the girl, but to give the girl the confirmation that something terrible has happened to her mother. And she's still not willing to abandon hope. She's not gonna like tire herself out. She's asking to go on an active hunt herself now, because nobody else, whoever she's turned to, nobody else has really been able to help her. And it's an interesting evolution on the scenario, especially because like there's a way that you can view this where the best outcome for the little girl potentially is not interacting with her at all. And maybe, right, so if you go down that particular storyline, eventually this window becomes dark. And what does that mean? Does that mean she's turned like everyone else? Does that mean that she's lost herself to this crazy night of the hunt that we found ourselves on? You can sort of make up your own story there, right? Maybe she just goes to sleep, or I don't know, she falls asleep, right? She can't help herself. She's just a little girl, and it gets late, she falls asleep, and that's why the window goes out. Or maybe something terrible happens. Once again, my penchant for tragedy, I think there's no good ending, right? Even if you ignore this little girl and her plea, she's just going to be anxious about what's happened to her family until something terrible happens to her, and she ends up succumbing to the problems that plague all the rest of Yharnam herself as well. So I don't think there is a good outcome to this particular scenario. But you could interpret that differently, and that's one of the things that the way that these Soulsborne games tell stories, that could be totally valid. But anyway, we're going to send her to Yosefka's clinic.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Miss Hunter. I love you almost as much as Mum and Dad. And Granddad.
So, I don't know who Granddad is, but, interesting. We're going to have to keep that in mind. Okay. Boy, it's already been, it's already been half an hour. I talked to, 3 NPCs. 2 NPCs? No, 3. 3 NPCs. This is nuts. Oh. I hope if you've stuck with the old hunt this long that you're enjoying the experience. All right, let's confirm whether or not these dialogues have updated.
I don't reckon you're from round here. Well...
Okay, yeah, all right. They haven't updated. Good to know. Good to know. All right, now I'm actually going to make use of this particular shortcut because there's someone else we can send. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Ah! Dog! Someone else we can send to Yosefka's clinic. Let's see. Where's the other dog? I thought there was another dog. Wasn't there a warping dog? Maybe that was the one that was out of its cage. Take no more chances. None. Go away. And I see you. I have not forgotten. I'm just gonna swing my way forward. Constant attack! That's the solution. Okay, oh, and check this out. You remember how there was a dog here before? This is another one of the disappearing enemies in Bloodborne. They're few and far between, but that dog is one of them. I'm pretty sure they put it there to incentivize you to attack it, and cued it to trigger the dialogue of the woman behind this door so that you know that some people out there are looking for safe places to go. And, hey, now we know of a safe place. We know of 2.
I've heard I have. Shutting up indoors isn't always enough. Well, if you hunters got off your asses, you wouldn't be in this mess. You're obligated to help me, you hear? So what'll it be? Are you going to tell me you're not?
Why don't you head to Yosefka's clinic?
Well, what do you know? An outsider worth a lick of salt. Well, don't just stand there. Don't you have work to do? Go slit some throats. Get this mess done with.
Oh, the translation is so good. I'm not going to elaborate on that one, except maybe worth a lick of salt. or whatever. Yeah, I think it was worth a lick of salt. But it was just like a hunter who is helpful, right? Would be a literal translation of the Japanese there. So much better. So, like, just really informed by that particular character. It's just so good. Okay. All right, now I want to go back to the dream. Oh, I forgot. You know what? I can get some bullets from that house. See, listen to me. Talk about the tragedy of only being able to swing the sword and then viewing these enemies in a purely utilitarian fashion. Because I know that if I come over here... that enemy will always drop quicksilver bullets, and I need them to power my flame sprayer. The duality of man. Alright, so I'm going to head back to the dream. And, well, actually... alright, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to the dream, and then I will say my farewells, because there's going to be more for us to do when we get there. We've still got more progress to make, but I'm taking my time about it, apparently. Okay, here we are back in the dream. And like I said before, I'm going to call this the episode for now. I hope you've enjoyed my running around and throwing my crazy lore theories at you and talking about the narrative in Bloodborne and the Soulsborne games and all that. I hope you've been having fun. Again, this is a celebration, 10 years of Bloodborne and everything that it is. And I hope that you're in for the ride with me and have been enjoying yourselves. And so I'm going to call this the end to my hunt for the evening. But for you, I wish you, as always, good hunting.